Welcome everybody. We are now doing a practice question number 10 on the practice exam. And it says here, given that f of x equals the absolute value of x, g of x equals x squared minus 1, and h of x equals the square root of x, which of the following compositions below, so when it says compositions below, it means function in a function. Function in a function. Below would give a range is my y values here, of 0 to infinity. Brackets, which means it touches the y value of, the y value of 0 to, and it goes on to infinity here. And it's asking us to check all of these here. So basically, all of these. So you can see here, A, B, and C, and we have choice D and E are combinations of such. So we really only have to check A through C. So we're going to check these, and we're going to graph them out, and we need to check the range. So what we're going to do is we are going to graph these out and check the range. The y values, right? So we're going to go ahead and do so right now. So the first one, so for A, I have f of g of x, so I'm going to put g in f. So the first thing I do is I write the outside function. My outside function is f. F, as we all know because it's listed, is absolute value of x. So I write down the absolute value of blank, and what goes in the blank? G. And g is just x squared minus 1. Okay, and if we remember this one, graphing step by step here, this one looks like a parabola here. It's shifted down 1, and it looks something like this here. But what does the absolute value do? It reflects all negatives and makes them positive. So basically what happens here, if we can zoom in here, is my negative values flip upwards here and become positive here. So this one ends up just looking like a, kind of like a W, right? And we erase all that stuff down there. And so the range of this is going to be, the first place I hit, notice this stuff in the bottom is now gone, right? So the first place I hit is 0. And it touches here because these points. And it keeps going, and where is the highest point? Well, it goes past this bump here at 1. Why is it at 1? Because the bump down here was at -1 here. So if you reflect it, it goes up to 1 now. And it keeps going because I hit the arrow, so it must clearly be infinity. So far, we know that A is one of the correct choices. So A is correct for sure, because remember, we wanted a range of 0 to infinity. Okay, now we're going to check B. H of g of x, hog of x. So I'm going to put g in h. So I'm going to first write down the outside function, which is h. H is the square root of x. So I write down the square root of blank, and I put in the inside function, which is g. G is equal to the, where's g? Is this guy here, which is x squared minus 1. And now we graph this one out here. And as you can see here, this one here is going to be the same kind of process here. We would graph out the original. It's a parabola. It starts at -1. And then what we do is we are going to apply the square root. And what does the square root do? It erases the negatives and then gives these guys a kind of a curl or punch outwards here. And now, normally we would have to find the domain to see where these are. These little points here. Let's zoom in to see a little bit closer here. Normally we would find these points. In this case, they turn out to be -1 and 1 if you solve the roots for that. We won't do that now. But if you could see, the range is still, because remember, we're looking for, the problem asks for the range. Okay? So we need to check the range. So the range in this case is the y, and we're going to go from here. We still hit 0, and it touches, and we continue upwards to infinity. So infinity here. Let me zoom out so we can see that a little bit better. So as you can see, this still has, just like A, this has a range of 0 to infinity. So B is also correct because I want a range of 0 to infinity. And now we're going to do part C. Part C is h of f of x. So C, we're going to put an we're going to put an f inside of h. So we first write down what f is. What is f? We first write down what is h, the outside function. What is h? H is the square root of something. So we put the square root of blank, and what goes in the blank? F goes in the blank. What is f? F is the absolute value of x. So we do this problem in the same exact way we've been doing all our problems. So we first graph the inside. The inside function, as we all know, looks like a v, absolute value, right? And what happens now when I apply a square root? The negatives go away, but the interesting part is there are no negatives, so I don't erase anything here. The only thing that happens is my arms are kind of just curve over here. They kind of like, instead of going straight, kind of like curve outwards, right? But as you can tell here, my range, remember we're not finding the domain, we're finding the range. And the range of this one is if I go from bottom to top, it is still going to touch the y value here at 0, right? So the range of this one is still going to be 0, and we keep going till we hit an arrow, which turns out to be infinity here. So as you can see, all of these have a range of 0 to infinity, so the answer is C, is A, B, and C, so thus the answer, real answer, is E. Is the final answer here, okay? Also, if, let's just say you're on the exam, and you are slightly unfamiliar with these, what you could also do is just enter these in your calculator here, okay? I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So if you take out your calculator here, I'm going to do part A is right here, is the absolute value of x minus 1. We hit second, catalog, 0, absolute value of x squared minus 1, close parentheses, we hit graph. As you can see, we end up with the w, right? And so you could find the range in that way, right? You could also graph out the second one here, the square root of x squared minus 1, the quantity. So the square root, parentheses, of x squared minus 1, close parentheses, if we hit graph. As you can see, you basically get the same thing that we have here, okay? And you could find the range in the same method, as you can see it goes from 0 to infinity, okay? And lastly here, we have this one, which is the square root of, you're going to go second catalog, absolute value of x, and then we hit graph here, and it's basically what we predicted here. And so again, the range is 0 to infinity. So as you can tell, even if you can't graph these by hand, or if you struggle, or if you're not as quick as you would like to be, you still have your calculator as another method of doing this problem.